Alright, in this lecture, we're going to go over contouring lines even further. So, like I said, observation is one of the most important parts when it comes to drawing. You need to learn to observe things. Now, we're going to draw my boot from life, but the thing is that most people make a mistake on is they usually look at their drawing too much and they don't look at the object enough. You should be spending more time looking at the object than you do looking at your drawing. You need to be studying every tiny little thing. So, for example, let me grab my boot. You'll see right here, we have this corner and then we have this angle, right? Now, if I were drawing it, if I spent all my time looking at my drawing and 10% of the time looking at this angle, I'd probably get the incorrect angle. But by looking at this angle over and over again and then looking at my drawing for a little while and then looking back at this angle and studying it and trying to figure out what angle that is, I'll be able to draw that a lot better. Same with everything else on this boot. So you want to spend most of your time looking at the object and hardly any time looking at your artwork. Trust me, this sounds counterintuitive, but believe me, this will make your art look way better the more you start observing from real life. So let's go ahead and get started. So with this, I'm going to spend about 50% of my time looking at my drawing and about 50% of the time looking at my boot. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing. Now, this is not going to be an endless line contouring drawing. I just want to actually draw the lines and the shapes that I see in my boot there. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at my boot and then I'm going to draw the line that I see. So that's the outer edge of my boot, the sole of my boot at least. Here's the bottom part of my boot. There's that sole. It comes over like so. So for example, I want to make sure that I get this shape correct. So I'm spending a lot of time looking at my boot, but then as I draw this line, I want to make sure that I'm looking at my drawing. That way I create the correct thickness of the sole of my boot. Otherwise, it's going to look off. And even right here, I started to look away, and that's why it's off. So I'm going to take my eraser, and I'm going to go ahead and erase that. And then I'm going to go ahead and sort of redraw that in, like so. And then I can finish the sole of my boot. Then I can work on the next shape that I see, which is this back part of the boot, which kind of curves up like so. And then I can start on this tip of the boot, or the toe of the boot. And then I also kind of see this shape right here. And I also see a shape like so. And that kind of curves around like that. And this back area is a little bit off, so I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Now I'm pressing a little bit hard with my pencils, so you want to make sure that if you want to erase, you're not pressing too hard. You can always go back and press harder. So I'm going to redraw this so it's not so curved. And then we'll have a little bit more area for the foot to fit into the boot. And then I'm also seeing sort of this shape right here for the bill of my boot. And that's basically the basic shape that I'm seeing for my boot. Now we can go a little bit further and add some more detail. So if I wanted to, I can add this back area and add more of a curve there. And then I can also add in this back piece. I can add more of this loop that I have on the back of my boot that you use for pulling your boots on. Let's see, we can add in each individual little hole. Now, the point of this is not to draw a perfect drawing. It's to try to get the lines as perfect as possible when it comes to resembling the lines on your actual object. And so then we can even add in those shoelaces. So there's one shoelace coming over like so, and there's another one coming over like so, and another one coming over like so. And while I'm drawing this, I'm really paying attention to everything about this. I'm paying attention to which shoelace goes over which shoelace. So like over here, for example, this shoelace is going to be underneath this shoelace, so I'm going to leave that area out, and then I can go ahead and add that one in, and I can add that one in. And I'm also paying attention to how these shoelaces are curving. So as we get up here to the top, we're going to get a little bit more of a curve, and I missed a shoelace hole. but we're going to get a little bit more of a curve. So it's going to curve more up like so. Same with this other side. So we're going to get more curve to our shoelace, just like so. And then we can also go ahead and add in those stitches that we see. And I'm making sure that I have the same exact curve that my shoe has. And then I can even go a little bit further and add some of the wrinkling that I see on this top area of the boot. And so I'm kind of seeing a wrinkle like so. Now, even though in real life these lines don't appear, it's good for you to draw them anyways. That way you start to get familiar with observing objects. That brings us to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, we learned how to draw contouring lines, and we also learned that we need to spend most of our time observing the object that we're trying to draw. Now, eventually you're going to be drawing out of your head, but until you understand how real life works and how real objects and real light works, you're not going to be able to draw out of your head. So you need to make sure that you're studying from life objects, and you need to learn how to observe those in great detail. So spend most of your time observing those objects and spend less time actually looking at your drawing. Thanks for watching this lecture, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next one.